Hey there guys. So I wanted to start off 2020 with a different kind of video than what I would normally make. I think it'll still be interesting to anyone that's watched my content, but I wanted to do a bit of reflecting. Everyone's doing their end of the decade, best of the decade lists right now, right? You know, best games of the decade, best anime of the decade, best of the decade, right? So everyone's reflecting back 2010 through 2019, and for me, that was, the latter half of school for me. I graduated from college, a couple weeks ago. I start my first real job tomorrow as of when I'm recording this. It's the 2nd of January today. And I've been thinking back about, a lot of my formative gaming experiences happened when I was in school. Both because, it was just when I was younger, talking to, meeting more people, meeting more other kids with similar interests to me. And interacting with them in person, and also because I'm probably part of the last generation of people who grew up with less or no access to the internet in terms of information. Like when I was growing up, I might not be that old compared to some other people who were around for early internet, but I remember when I had a DSL connection that was slower than dial-up, like 90 kilobyte download. I can remember that very well. I remember trying to play Halo 3 on that. It was atrocious. So a lot of the formative social gaming experiences I had, in the last decade, and maybe a little bit before that in the case of some of this stuff in this video, were in the past decade. So with 2020 starting up and, me getting back into YouTube videos and also kind of moving on to the next part of my life, I guess, I wanted to look back because gaming has pretty much been the one staple of my entire life so far. And there are a lot of experiences from my childhood that are getting farther and farther away, and I kind of wanted to document them in some way. And I thought it would be an interesting discussion, right? A lot of these stories exist because internet-connected games and internet information was less available or not available at the time that these things happened. And I feel like it's a more interesting thing to look back on for me than a best of the decade list, because in 2014 I wasn't really thinking that critically about video games. Probably not until like my first or second year of college was I really really getting into it. So this is a little bit more of a casual video. I'm going to go sit in my recording booth, aka my closet, and I'm going to rattle off some stories about social experiences I had in gaming in the past 10 to 12 years or so. I think looking back on that stuff is important, and there's some fun stories I'd like to tell. So we're going to tell them. So I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I hope it makes you think of some of your own social gaming experiences, especially if you're my age or maybe a little older, experiences you had before the internet was widespread. I think those can be really interesting, and some really immersive stories can come from pre-internet gaming. So I'm going to go sit in my closet and talk about games for a while. I hope that you will enjoy it. The Game Boy Advance has been a pretty influential console in my life. It was the first console I ever got personally when I was very young. And I'd played video games before that. I'm pretty sure at this point my parents could already tell that I had an interest in video games. My grandmother on my mom's side had a Super Nintendo, and this was in like this was in like 2000s, so the Super Nintendo was hardly new. I'm pretty sure the N64 was the console when I was starting to grow up, and then the GameCube as well, obviously. And so I loved Super Nintendo games. I have very fond memories of being in that house playing Super Nintendo games. A lot of those games are still my favorites. And there at that house was where I got a Game Boy Advance and got Super Mario Kart, I believe. Or no, what is it called? That was where I got, oh man, I can't remember what the name of the Game Boy Advance Mario Kart is. Super Circuit? Yeah, that's the one. Got Super Circuit, and I got a Game Boy Advance, the clear plastic one. And I played that so much. And I had an interest in Pokemon at that point. I remember on at least one road trip, my uncle, who had a Game Boy Color, lent me it for a road trip with Pokemon Red, and I very vividly remember that car trip. I'm pretty sure I was playing with, like, we were driving through the night to South Carolina, and I'm pretty sure I was trying to play with the car overhead light, which, you know, it's only as good as the light angle. And we didn't have a worm light for it or anything like that, so... But I can remember that very fondly. So I got Pokemon Ruby. I can remember getting it, but... And, you know, I played it. I love... Gen 3, still my favorite Pokemon generation. I got it, played it. I have one pretty fond memory of sitting in my... in the dining room at my old house. And so this was before, like, 2004 or something like that. Maybe 2005. And I remember being in Victory Road with a Roselia, and I didn't really grasp the concept of leveling multiple Pokemon like most kids don't. So I just had one really overpowered Swampert, and all the rest of my Pokemon sucked. So when the Swampert died, I would just use the shitty Pokemon in a vain attempt to live. And I can remember one particular instance sitting in the dining room with a Roselia, spamming Sweet Scent, waiting for my death. Because that was the only move that it had PP on or something. And so I played Ruby. I'm pretty sure I beat it at some point. Moved on, got Emerald when that came out, I think. I remember getting it. I still have my cartridge, so I don't know when I got it, but I can remember getting it. And Emerald, for me, is probably still the best Pokemon game ever made. I absolutely love that game. And that game had a lot of mystery to it. There was a lot of things you didn't know because there was no internet, right? And like you either had to get a guidebook or you had to find out from someone else whether or not, you know, you could do certain things. And I'm pretty sure I had beaten the game, you know, trying to do random other stuff. And a friend of mine who no longer lives in this state, but I still talk to him occasionally. Either he told me or we found it by accident or something. We stumbled upon one of the cave for the Reggies in Pokemon Emerald, the one with the Braille. And I don't even know how we would have ever found them. Either he heard from someone else or he had a guidebook or something. I remember I was sleeping over at his house. This was probably like 4th or 5th grade. Maybe 4th grade. I think that was when he moved away. And I remember we were at his house and we were talking about it and we were trying to figure out what it was. And I don't remember if we asked his dad or we figured it out somehow, because obviously we knew what Braille was at that point. And obviously we couldn't read Braille. And at this point, like, most of the computers I'd ever used are still like gray chunky beasts that, you know, crash when you try to play a Flash game. So, you know, we don't really think of, at the time we really didn't think of those as a source of information. We knew we could find things on the internet, but you don't really think like someone knows someone knows how to read Braille on the internet, right? So we go on the computer and we were Googling or whatever the search engine, Yahoo maybe, I don't fucking know. And we come across the Braille alphabet. And now when I think about this story, the thing that really sticks with me is that we didn't just look at the Braille on the computer, we printed it off. Now, I find this hilarious to think about, because not only did almost everyone you know, at least in my experience, every family that I knew, if they had a computer, they also had a printer, whereas almost no one I know now who has a computer has a printer. I sure don't have a printer. I don't even have a disk drive in my computer anymore, let alone a printer next to it or on top of it or whatever. So not only did we not just read it off the computer, we printed it off. And I remember printing it off and taking it and going into his room. And we like laid down on the floor or on his bed or something. And we were like, oh man, I think about this moment and I think about how mind-blowing it is as a child to find something on the internet and get a physical thing that you printed off, lay it down on the floor, and, you know, decipher the Braille and figure out what you have to do in a game, and then when you do it and it works, don't know if that kind of experience can even be replicated in this year, in this day and age, with such access to technology. Such a, coming together of information moment where you bring all this information you've got from different places into a game, and then it just works, and it's just mind-blowing. And I can think of when we dug the thing, when you dig at the spot where it tells you to dig, and that's a magical kind of moment, and really one that I don't think could ever happen again, either to me or just in general. I feel like nowadays, if you don't know what to do in a game, you Google it, or you stop playing, or I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's something that happens anymore. And I mean, obviously, it's difficult for me as someone who's played many video games at this point, so many, more than I can count. Like, nothing really confuses you anymore. Like, you can kind of figure out most things, unless it's like a deliberate puzzle. There's nothing really that's like, I just know more things now, right? There's nothing really that's like shrouded in mystery anymore. Like, it's not like coming across this thing and you're like, what is this? Oh, it could be Braille. Okay, if it's Braille, all right, let's go find a Braille alphabet and print it off. Okay, so we've got the Braille alphabet. Now, if we compare all the Braille to the alphabet, oh, it says to dig here. Let's try digging here, and then it works. And you're like, I cannot believe it worked. And now, if I came across that now, oh, it's in Braille. All right, I'll go look up a Braille alphabet. All right, it tells me to dig here. Cool. And then you just go in. And you already probably know there's like a Reggie behind there because you've just heard like 8 people talk about it. And it's not the same. Like, exploring those kind of open games is just not the same anymore. And I have very fond memories of that moment, but it's one that I don't think can be replicated anymore with all the access to the internet. Continuing on the Pokemon topic, a few years later, the Nintendo DS is out. I'm a huge fan of the Nintendo DS. It's my favorite console of all time. I collect DS games. Love it. Love the DS. I think it's one of the best systems ever made. Of course, I am a ridiculous fan of Pokemon Emerald at this point. I'm pretty sure, child me, who can't keep their attention span for like 5 minutes, I'm pretty sure I had over 200 plus hours on that save file on my Emerald cartridge. Obviously, the save battery's dead now, so I can't check. But, an unbelievable amount of time in Pokemon. So when I find out Pokemon Diamond and Pearl are coming out, I'm losing my mind, right? I'm so excited. And at this point, we had moved, and a friend of our family, who lived 4 houses down from us, from our old house, we moved, and then they moved into the house next door to us. So, and I was friends with their son pretty much throughout my entire schooling. He's the first friend I can remember having. We played baseball together, and we, played a lot of games together as kids. He had a PlayStation, and I had a GameCube, so we would, we would cross between those. So, the neighbor who moved, he's having a party at his house on the day that Diamond and Pearl come out. So, it's like a sleepover party, right? So there's like 6 or 7 people invited. And this is an interesting story to me, because now in my life, most people, I'm more of a hardcore gamer now, right? Like, I play a lot of video games. I would say I know almost every major release that comes out in a year, before it happens. Not like when I used to just go into a store and buy a video game. So, but I think a lot of the people who I was friends with were also like surface level into games at the time when I was as well. So I can literally remember his mom and maybe also his dad. There was literally like 7 of us. So they loaded us into their van, their red minivan, which I can remember very well. We went to GameStop and we all bought it. We all bought our copy of either Diamond or Pearl there, and then we went back. And like, I cannot imagine having like an experience like that anymore. Like, most people buy it digitally, or they just don't care. Like, the idea of getting everyone in a car and going to a GameStop to buy a video game, that might not even be something you can do in the next like 2 or 3 years. GameStop's gonna be dead within 5 years, I think. So we all get our games and we come back, and we kind of open them up and we start playing, and it's late, right? The one thing I can remember, and it's kind of a childish thing, but I think it's part of the story, so I think it needs to be noted. Most of the people I know got Diamond because they all liked Dialga way better than Palkia. I liked Palkia, so I went with Pearl. And I liked naming
my character after the version. So like in Ruby, I named my character Ruby. I always played as a male, but I like naming my character Ruby. Emerald, I named my character Emerald. So in Pearl, I'm going to continue doing the same thing. I named my character Pearl, and because we are all like 10-year-olds, my male friends decide to think it's funny that I named my male character Pearl. And, you know, I'm like reasoning with them. I'm like, no, it could be a boy's name. And I'm like thinking about how you could use Pearl in like a masculine sense. And I'm like, I look back on this now and I'm like, of course this is how it went, right? This is like such a dumb story. And I know, like, you know, it's fine. It's dumb. It's a dumb kid thing, right? So, you know, I'm like questioning my version choice and everything, and this all going, but you know, eventually it's whatever, right? So we're a couple hours. We're all playing this thing. We're a couple hours into the game. And I think in the second or third town in Gen 4, you get the Poffin Maker. And you get to start doing... I'm pretty sure that game has contests. I'm going to look it up. Yeah. So the contests in that game... I love the contests in Gen 3. One of my favorite things. Contests and Pokeblocks, one of my favorite mechanics in any Pokemon game. So, as soon as I get to those, I started making Poffins like it was no one's business. Like, I'm going around collecting all the berries, then going straight back and making the Poffins. And I was like, I want to start doing contests. And I can remember the dressing up the Pokemon with, like... you know, the accessories and stuff for the contest. And I really liked the contest in Gen 3, so I was like, oh my god, I get to add accessories now, and I get to, you know, the way you make the power-up food is a little bit different now. I'm like, oh, I was loving it so much. That might be one of the first things I can ever remember where I was like consciously aware of like an improvement from one game to another, where it was like, oh man, the contests in this game were good, but they really like expanded on it in the next game, and I thought that was amazing. You know, we stay up all night we're all doing contests and battling and doing all this stuff, and the capstone of this story, which isn't even a part of it's not even really about Pokemon. So, you know, we're all a bunch of dumb kids drinking Mountain Dew and playing video games, so we're staying up way too late. And so our his parents are upstairs, and they come down at like 3 a.m, and we're all just making a shit ton of noise. And we all try to fake being asleep, right? We all like close our DS and go in our sleeping bags, and she comes down and like yells at us, and like 30 minutes later we all go upstairs to try to quietly make popcorn like that's something that we could do. And it's just, I can't really say that I miss sleepovers, because honestly these days I'm happy to sleep in my own bed if I go somewhere and then come back late. But the idea of going to a GameStop, buying a new game with like 6 or 7 people, you know, you all have, you know, some connectivity going between them, staying up all night at one place, playing a game. It's just, I play a lot of games over Discord now, and Discord's great. Discord is unreal. And I'm pretty sure Discord is what kept my friend group together after high school, but it's not the same as getting everyone in a room and playing the game. And we still do that today. We still, whenever we get the chance, we get in the room and we play some games. And it's something that is less common now, and I think that's really sad. And I think online games are great, but getting everyone in a room and playing a game is really something special. Continuing on the DS trend, another game that I really loved as a kid was Animal Crossing. Now, I think back on this, and I wonder how the hell my parents thought to buy me Animal Crossing for my GameCube, because I don't know, like, a lot of the games that my parents bought for me are absolute classics, like Pikmin and Animal Crossing. I can see how they'd buy me Mario, because everyone knows Mario, but like, some of these games that they bought me, like Donkey Konga, like, why did they think of this? And I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm so happy they did, because the GameCube is probably my most fondly remembered console. And I wonder how they got to these games sometimes. I wonder how they got them. But Animal Crossing, which is a weird game, really, like if you think about it, like, why would you buy it's not an action game at all. But as a kid, I totally loved it for some reason. I had Animal Crossing on the GameCube, totally loved it, played it a lot. And I remember when Animal Crossing Wild World came out, which is the DS one, and, you know, I was stoked on it, right? Oh, I can play Animal Crossing on my DS. Heck yeah. It's got the clock features, right? You know? Real-time clock features. And Animal Crossing is a kind of a special game, right? Because it has time-sensitive events. Everything that happens is based on a timer. And the interesting thing about Animal Crossing is that finding information out about that game at this time, with the lacking of internet somewhat, is really, it's like hard to find. It's like hard to find information like that. And in a game that really has a lot of content in it, you kind of just have to explore and figure out what there is. So the same friend who I mentioned in the Pokemon Diamond and Pearl story, he also had Animal Crossing Wild World. So we're playing kind of together, right? You know, we're interacting with each other's towns. You can go and visit other people's towns in that game, so that was like a huge thing. You don't have to use memory cards anymore. And one of the most amazing things about the DS and what it allows, being portable, I lived in a cul-de-sac most of my childhood. And we could go out with our DSs in a nice summer night and sit on the island of the cul-de-sac in the middle on the curb and play our game and talk about it and just explore it. And Animal Crossing was so good for that. You know, someone would have an event happen to them and they would tell you about it and they'd be like, oh my god, I had this crazy thing happen, and they let me buy this really cool furniture. And I heard if you wake up on Sunday at 10 in the morning, he'll be there. And you know, there's like some random stores that will show up at certain times, like traveling stores, and it's like, oh my god, he actually does show up at like 10 in the morning. And that's hard to recapture. And that's one reason I'm really excited about this new Animal Crossing game, is because it's going to be a whole nother game where we don't really know what happens or how you do anything. And I'm really going to try to avoid going online and figuring out everything for that game. And it's not really a game you can figure out, but like knowing when things happen even. I want to be able to just log in to Animal Crossing one day and be like, what's happening in the town today? And then I can tell other people about it and just I want to have a word of mouth experience. And that kind of thing is exactly what this was like. It's an entirely word of mouth experience. I remember my neighbor got Nookingtons first, the final version of the store, because he paid off all his debts. And I was blown away by that, of how a game could like evolve over time. Because one thing that is kind of a trend with my stories of gaming in my childhood is that I was a little bit, just a smidge too late on the whole graphics in games blowing my mind, right? I didn't have enough of a frame of reference as a child to appreciate it as I got older. So, aside from a few notable examples, Halo 3 being the one example, which was the first game I ever saw on a high-def television, which blew my mind. Other than that, the graphic thing wasn't really a thing for me. It was more like the kinds of experiences that I had. Seeing a game like progress over time and change totally blew me away. And I would always go and visit him next door and ask to like come over so I could go and get my hair changed, because you can get a haircut at Nookingtons, and I thought that was amazing. And you can only do it once per day, so it was really interesting. And it's incredible how that being a mobile game facilitated me going out in the cul-de-sac with my friends and playing these games and talking about them, you know, every other day. It's almost a meta type of Animal Crossing experience. You log into your town every day to see what your townspeople are doing, and you also go out in the cul-de-sac every day to see how everyone else's towns are doing, and you could visit and do all those things. And amazing. I don't think I could ever have an experience like that again. I'll obviously be able to visit my friends' towns over the internet with the Switch version, and that will be great. I'm sure I will do that. But there's something about literally leaving your house and going to another physical location to talk about a game and to experience it that is fantastic. And those days with Animal Crossing in the summer, I will never forget. For the last main story of this video, we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to go to PC games. So as a kid, I wasn't ever really into PC gaming. Most people, I would say, who get into PC gaming as a kid have a parent that was into PC gaming as a kid, right? So I think this will become more common now, because now PC gaming is much more mainstream, so kids will grow up with PC gaming being more normal, and now I'll have more PC gaming as kids. My 13-year-old cousin just asked for parts to build a computer, and I helped him make it, and that surprised me because he knew specific computer components, and I didn't know those things till I was like 17. So it's more common now. But as a kid, PC gaming wasn't really a thing unless your parents had a gaming computer, which mine certainly did not. And we had a big old chunky PC at the basement, crappy Dell laptops. We never really had good computers in the house. But I was like addicted to Flash games, and I think most kids who are like me were like this. You go on Miniclip, you go on Addicting Games, you go on Cool Math Games, and you play some Flash games, and they're good, and they're fine. You could have a great time playing Flash games. And there were a couple of social type games that I really love. I'm gonna first, of course, start with RuneScape. And I played RuneScape in 2008, pretty much 2007, 2008, the peak prime of RuneScape, when there's 100,000 people playing at all times. I know, every third person at school is playing RuneScape and, doing their leveling and fighting goblins and all that stuff. And RuneScape, for me, that was the first game where I ever had to log in and create an account, and I had to ask my dad if it was okay if I made an account on this game, because it said you had to be 13, and he was like really skeptical, even though this game looks like it's, N64 game, and it runs in your browser. Like, it's no Doom, it's RuneScape. And so I got in, I was playing, I was making an account, right? And eventually you go over to Falador, and near Falador is a wall, and the wall, you can't pass it to the left, to the west. There's a door you can't go through unless you're a member. And so this is when I was first ever introduced to the idea of paying for a membership for a game. And paying for online games wasn't really that common at this point. So of course, I asked my dad, and he's like horribly skeptical about entering his credit card number online in a browser. Are you kidding me? Why would I do that? And I couldn't convince him to do it. But I knew a couple people at school who had memberships. And by the way, don't do what I'm about to tell you, because it's against the terms of service and you can get banned for it. But I would ask my friends if I could play on their member accounts. And of course, I don't know anything about how playing as a member works. I just wanted to get past that wall. I wanted to see what was over there. My friend, who I did know, who had a member account, he was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll let you log on." And of course, he like shared his password with me and stuff. I'm like, "Don't do this, don't do this." And I walked around in the areas I couldn't go to. On my own account, I would I'll go to the Falador party room and do drop parties and all these things, just exploring around. And I can remember getting lured one time, which is where someone like baits you out into the wilderness or something. So the guy tells me like, "Oh yeah, follow me. We'll go trade. We have to trade in the wilderness. They don't let you trade these items here," or something like that. And I can remember like following him out, and we jump the wilderness line, and then he just smacks me, and I'm like stunned. I'm like, I can't believe I just got destroyed by a random guy on the internet. And so many social experiences in RuneScape. I mean, RuneScape is an unreal game in terms of like founding kids' social structures. Like, I'm pretty sure the reason I can type really fast is because of RuneScape. Like, you had to type fast to get things done in that game, or you weren't getting into guilds at clan wars. You had to type to get into clans and clan wars. All sorts of stuff like that. Typing at the Grand Exchange, or doing whatever. Pretty sure RuneScape was what made me learn how to type fast. There were a couple of other online type MMO games. Battlon, Adventure Quest is the name of it, but Battlon is the website, which is like a weird web-based online game, but it's not really an MMO. That was a game where you paid like $20 and you got membership for life. Still got it. I logged into it recently. The other two I can remember really well are, Gaia, which I didn't play. I played that when I was really young, and I didn't really know what was going on. I can remember fishing. I can remember doing the puzzles. I can remember playing ZOMG and seeing all the people with all the clothing. And my memories of Gaia are less clear, but Habbo Hotel. I used to play Habbo Hotel so much, and there were so many weird things in that game that people did. In that game, all the furniture has to be bought with real money, and so of course, again, I could never convince my parents to get me any. I can actually remember I was thinking about taking one of their phones and trying to pay for it via the phone, because they let you do that, and I wondered if I could get away with it. And I also remember there were so many videos on YouTube that claimed that these were ways that you could get free coins on Habbo, and there were all these like sketchy software that would like give you weird malware on your computer, stuff like that. And I remember like certain things in that game, right? Like I think that was the this is gonna sound really bad. I think that was the only game I ever had like an online GF in, right? Like you find a female avatar that you talk to as like a 13-year-old kid. You're like, I guess we're dating now, right? And you're like, oh god, I have responsibility. I have a girlfriend, and like you do like one thing with them online, and then you never see them again, and you're like, what did I do wrong? What happened? And kids are weird, man. The fact that people do that is, I think about that now, and I'm like, oh god, why did I do that? There were weird like agencies people would join, so then you'd see like an ad for an agency. They'd be like, hiring. It was basically a pyramid scheme, right? They would hire you on, and then you'd like do some fucking menial task, and they'd pay you like, if they paid you at all. I mean, they didn't just kick you when they were supposed to pay you. They'd pay you like 1 coin an hour, which is like $1 maybe, and maybe they like 50 cents, really cheap. And you had to use that to get like what little furniture you could get. But the thing that I remember the most fondly in that game was it was a quote unquote mini game that people used to do called Falling Fernie. Fernie was the abbreviation for furniture in that game, F-U-R-N-I. And how it would work is you'd go in a room and you'd queue up on like these conveyor belts, and you'd wait your turn and then get into a game of Falling Fernie. And the room host was some like rich guy, right? And they're like, they want to give away some money and play a game. And so how it goes is you get into this space, like it's like a square, right? And it's a grid-based game, isometric. So all the furniture takes up like 1, 2, or 4 squares basically. And what they would do is, it was sort of like musical chairs, where they would drop down a piece of furniture, and you have to sit on it as fast as you can. You have to click on it. If you be ready, you have to click on it when it drops down. And if you're the last person at the end who doesn't get to sit on something, you get kicked out of the room. And the idea is like a last man standing kind of thing, right? And most of these were scams. And what I mean is, how they would actually make money off of this is they would offer you ways to stay in the game if you're gonna lose. So you could pay 1 coin or a furniture to stay in the game if you lose, and then at the end he just kicks all the people out of the room. And then he just keeps what he like he would trade you. So like, let's say you were the person who won, they would trade you so you couldn't type, and then while you're trading them, they kick you out of the room, which makes it look like you left, and then they just don't say anything, right? And then they assume that the person just gave you the prize. You've already been banned from the room, so you can't go back there and find his name or report him. And the next people file in, and he keeps making money that way, and they don't actually give out any prizes. And I can remember winning this kind of thing like 3 or 4 times and never getting anything. And people would always kick you out. I remember trying to do it once I got like a piece of furniture from something, and I felt like really bad about it afterward when I like took someone's money and like kicked them out, and I was like, oh no, I'm gonna get banned or something. Habbo was just an unchecked wasteland of internet social behavior, and RuneScape, those are the reasons that I can type fast. I want to give some honorable mentions here to some other social experiences I had in the past decade that were not really pre-internet anymore, but I think are worth sharing on this list. Not really list, on this subject. The first one I want to mention is Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go, for me, was the closest thing that this society will ever see to anything like pre-internet socialization. Ever. We'd need something really amazing to be able to replicate this. Everyone was playing Pokemon Go when it came out. An unbelievable amount of people. I was at... Pokemon Go kind of released out of nowhere. I was at Summer Games Done Quick 2016, because it was hosted in my state, and I was there on the night that it released with a couple of other people I knew from online. And it released, and we all downloaded it, and we're all looking around, right? And we start walking around
I live in Minnesota, so we were in Minneapolis. We start walking around Minneapolis looking for Pokemon, right? We're walking to the parks, we're walking to the stores that have things, and we see a bunch of other people walking around. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. Everyone's walking around playing Pokemon. This is kind of neat. You know, a couple weeks later, this is during the summer, so I'm home from college. And my city that I live in, my hometown, has like kind of a city center, sort of near the high school. And I was home, and everyone else was home, and we were all playing Pokemon Go. And we knew that there were some Pokestops near the heart of the city. So we hop in our cars, and we pick everyone up, and we go to the heart of the city. And so we're walking around, doing battles, getting Pokemon, you know, spinning the stops and stuff. We're talking about, like, where you can get certain Pokemon, what's in the area. And there were so many people there. It was like 10 p.m. on a weekday in the summer, and there must have been almost 100 people in that place in real life playing Pokemon Go. And I cannot understate how much that amazed me to see that many people in a physical location playing a video game. Unbelievable. And it was a blast. We're all shooting shit about which teams are better. There was one point where someone spotted, like, I think what I'm about to say probably has this is probably the closest thing I will ever have in my entire life to what could be considered a real Pokemon experience. And by that I mean the way Pokemon is in real life. I'm near the edge of the heart of the city, like it's like a park, and I'm near like a little bit of a parking lot, and some other guys we don't know walk over, and we're near a bunch of the other people, and they're like, we saw this Pokemon over across the street, and it's rare. We don't know how long it'll last. I swear to God, like 10 or 15 people, including myself, we are running to find this Pokemon. We are running. We cross the street to get over to this other place. We're all looking for it, and people are calling like, "Oh, it's over here! It's over here!" I get chills thinking about this. I could not explain to you how incredible of a moment this was. These people we don't know telling us there's a Pokemon in real life at a location, and we go to it, and we run there, and we all try to find it, and it's just, that game is really, even if I don't play it now, and if they did some things wrong, that game's initial zeitgeist was really something to be at, and I was so glad I was part of that, because it was unbelievable. The last thing I want to put a cap on for this is Team Fortress 2. Now, this was in 2013, and I was still not really into PC gaming, but I had a laptop that was kind of okay. It could play some games. And, of course, I downloaded Team Fortress 2. It's the free Steam game, right? Especially at the time. It's the game you get on Steam when you get a Steam account. I had met this friend of mine at school because I brought my DS to school and I was playing Pokemon. He approached me and we were talking about Pokemon, and he was like, we're having a party at our friend's house this weekend for his birthday, and they are a couple of them play PC games. So I met what is basically my entire current friend group because of this party, because I go over there and I meet all of them and I have a great time. And I brought my laptop, and we all set up our laptops on a fold-out table. We're all playing some Team Fortress 2. It was unbelievable. And the two guys in particular who were there, who played TF2, other than the host who got into it later, we bonded instantly after that. And pretty much the entirety of 2013 and 2014, I played TF2 with them, and it was a fantastic experience. Team Fortress 2, until very recently, was my most played game of all time, and having a social experience introduced me to so many people who play games similarly to me was fantastic, and so many good memories with Team Fortress 2. So there's some of my social gaming experiences that I had as a child. Those times are pretty far gone now, but I think striving to have those kinds of unique experiences are really what make games really amazing. With the start of a new year, and for me, a new job and a new part of my life, I'm really hoping I can keep those kind of interesting gaming experiences coming. And I hope to be able to share those interesting experiences with you guys. I'm hoping to produce a lot more content this year. I just wanted to do YouTube for so long. So I'm hoping this is the start of more unique gaming experiences in this decade. And I thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.